Well, here I am. Okay, the title of this video will be that water levels prove FO. The reason I'm making this is not that I disagree that water levels establish a horizontal plane of reference, or that I disagree that water at rest establishes a horizontal at all times, or that I think that level is not horizontal. No, it's not that. It's because there's a lot of nonsense going on at the moment, and there's a lot of claims being made, and a lot of straw man and arguments being made by some people, and a lot of misrepresentation going on by some people. But these same people have an argument that they claim is a solid argument that water levels prove that level is horizontal. And I'm going to show how that is not correct. Okay, here we have, not that I disagree with it, just before I go on further. It's not that I disagree with them. I agree with them. But it doesn't, their claim is not correct. Water levels on their own do not prove that level is horizontal. And I'll show why. So I don't disagree with these people, even though they are my opposition. I don't disagree with them. They are correct. But it's not a proof that level is horizontal, and they are incorrect about that. Okay, here we have Lake Mead in Nevada. Now, there's been a lot of water drainage or whatever from Lake Mead. So as you can see here, if I can just go in a bit, sorry, and up. It's not the clearest, but there you go. Right, here you can kind of see it. You can see where the water level was here. This is showing where the water level was, right, all along here, right? There's just one section of Lake Mead. And it's dropped down to this, right? So all here used to be where the water was in Lake Mead. Now, this all appears to be a horizontal. So even if let's just say I just get let's say a line, and it is line. Right, here's a line. Now, I can put this line here, and it'll appear to be straight all the way. Now, that appears to prove that, yeah, that is straight, right? I can't disagree with that. And I would believe absolutely and state that, yeah, that water at rest, or any water in a big body of water, will always strive to find, all water will always strive to find horizontal. That's what it does. Regardless of tides, waves, anything else, it's always striving to find horizontal. That is a claim I would make. But how do I prove that with just water levels? I can't. So here, I think it's about 1.6 miles or something, or 1.5 miles or something, maybe 1.4, between around here to here. I measured it last night. What I could see, what appeared to be this. So it's like between 1 and 2 miles. But if the problem is that, yeah, it looks straight, and it appears to be all straight. And if I just go to here, that's the smallest, thinnest I can make that line. So it appears to be straight. It appears to be horizontal. But the problem is, does it prove that that water? If I was to be a globe believer, right? Globe believing people exist. There's most of the world believe the earth is a globe. So if I was to come towards a layman and make the argument to him that the water level only appears to be horizontal, so you only ever have an apparent horizontal, but the earth is actually a globe, and there isn't enough distance, let's just say, between these 2 points to prove that it's not a globe, because there would be such a little amount of curvature between, let's say, 1.6 miles of Earth. If Earth was a globe, there would be such little curvature that from this distance and within this scenario, how could I prove that there isn't some small amount of curvature between here and here? How could I prove that that this water here is not curving, regardless of what my experience tells me, regardless of what I believe or my opinion is? This doesn't prove that water is horizontal. right, or makes a horizontal at rest. It doesn't prove that. That water line there, although you should, like most people would view it as, well, just looks to be straight and horizontal. Yes, but mathematically, from a globe believing point of view, I can argue against that. So I can argue against that with globe mathematics. And I can show to the average layman how there would be such, over that span of a distance, there'd be such a small amount of curvature that it wouldn't be noticed. So if I just take this away, it wouldn't be noticed between these 2 points optically. You wouldn't be able to notice it. You would have to somehow measure it. This along here, and this is all undulating, so it would be difficult to measure. You would have to somehow measure that there is no curvature to show that there is no curvature, and that the water that was up here wasn't curving very slightly between these 2 points, right? So, as I said, it's not my opinion. My opinion would be that it's absolutely horizontal. That water always strives to make it horizontal, regardless of the amount of it or its size, with the exception of a drop because of intermolecular bonding and intramolecular bonding and whatever, that with hydrogen bonding and that it will obviously at the small scale of a drop scale, it will be a dome or a drop or curved or whatever. But aside of that, water will strive to find horizontal. That would be my opinion. But here is a water level. Now, so let's say there is, let's say this is 5 meters, right? That doesn't prove, just because that water level, right, is creating what appears to be a horizontal for me, that doesn't prove that water levels prove that level is horizontal. Because from a globe point of view, I can claim that it only appears to do that on a small scale. So here is same thing, right? I can make the claim that that there is a very, very tiny amount of curvature between these 2 points here, and consequently, that the Earth is a globe, but it's such a small amount of curvature between these 2 points here that it appears to be absolutely horizontal using a 10-meter water level, right? If we move on again, same again here, water level, it appears that it is making a horizontal. So I can make the claim or the argument that there is an apparent horizontal being made, right, at the small and local scale, right? Mathematically, if I'm a globe believer, I can make that argument and then show on the bigger scale, right, past where we can use the scale beyond what we can use water levels on, or let's just say, because it's so difficult to expand water levels out to the big scale. I can make the argument that on the big scale, the Earth is still a heliocentric globe, but on a small scale, water levels will give the appearance of creating a horizontal. So over a few meters, or even a couple of 100 meters, there won't be any noticeable enough difference, right? I can make that argument, and I can make that argument to any layman or laywoman, and they would very likely just accept it because they wouldn't know any different, because it would appear logical, especially if they already believe the Earth to be a globe. So, right, some water level statements, some statements that are made by a certain group of people who are making statements and being not honest in what they're doing at the moment. They are making claims, misrepresenting, not addressing when they are not being honest, trolling, different things like that. Kind of trying to antagonize, things like that, right? I'm trying to avoid all that. These people have made it impossible, sorry, not impossible, they've made it pointless, right, to try speaking with them. So I won't be doing that anymore. Speaking with them has become pointless, as you just have your time wasted, and anything you say will be undermined and misrepresented later, and you will be misrepresented as a person. So it makes it pointless trying to speak to them, right? They have beliefs, and this is some of their beliefs, and they believe that their water level argument is a solid argument, and I'm going to show how it's not. I think I've already shown it with my explanation, but I'll go on anyway. So here's some water level statements from these people. 1. Water levels are a tool for establishing a horizontal plane of reference. I agree, right? My opinion and experience would suggest that water at rest will always find horizontal. So I don't disagree with it. I agree with it. That water at rest will always strive to find horizontal. No problem there. That's what my opinion would be, right? But that is my opinion and my experience with water, right? But number 2, water levels prove that level is horizontal. I do not agree, right? Right? My opinion is not a proof, as on the larger scale, water levels on their own, right? On their own, I must stress that, on their own, do not prove that level is horizontal. If celestial navigation elevation angles and or commercial air travel or similar are added to the claim that water levels prove that level is horizontal, then and only then can this claim be used as an argument. I'm going to show what I mean. If you take a water level, let's just say, right? Here is 0.5 of a kilometer, right? Between these 2 points is 500 meters of water level. Let's just say, right? So let's just say there's little vials of water all along here, right? And they all have the same. Everything has been done correctly with the pressure and the tubes and everything, right? And all of these water levels, right, appear to me making a horizontal, right? That's 0.5 of a kilometer, 500 meters of water level from G to H and from H back to G, right? But the problem is water levels are not an optical tool. You must pre-assume that over this 500 meter span that you won't be able to tell optically any different. You must pre-assume that these water levels are, let's say the level of the water here is horizontal. You must pre-assume that the water at rest here is creating a horizontal. So you have to beg the question. So you have to enter into a begging the question fallacy. Right? I don't like that. Why would you want to do that? It doesn't prove anything. That begging the question fallacy does not prove anything. And the reason it doesn't prove anything is because I can come along as Ball or Brian, right? Globe or Brian, and I can beg the question, right? That no, on the small scale, that that the water levels are only creating an apparent horizontal, and because water levels are not an optical tool, right? Then I can claim that what's actually happening is all that water is equidistant from the center of a sphere Earth with a radius of 3959 miles. And even though I'm begging the question, you're begging the question that that there's 500 meters of a horizontal after being created is no stronger than my begging the question. So it's a begging the question fallacy versus a begging the question fallacy, and everything ends up in a draw. So water levels do not prove that level is horizontal, right? To show this, you can see here, this looks to be totally horizontal. You could optically, even though, and you must remember, water levels are not an optical tool, right? So optically, right, even from standing back, it looks like there's a horizontal after being made. But when we zoom out, you can see that the Earth that I showed here is a globe of radius 3959 miles. And I just showed 1/2 kilometer of water level. And you can't show any different. Sorry. So if I zoom back into it, right, that's how small it is. It's hard to zoom into it. See, it looks horizontal, it appears horizontal, but on the larger scale, on a globe, it would all be the same optically. And the people who use this as an argument will state themselves that and exclaim themselves that the water level is not an optical tool. So optically, you can't tell any difference between globe or horizontal, curved or horizontal. You can't tell any different. So it's my begging the question as a baller versus your begging the question that it's horizontal. So I can beg the question that it's only horizontal on appears to be horizontal on the small scale, Whereas you're begging the question is that it is creating a horizontal. You're begging the question. It's not a good argument. On its own, it means nothing. If you add in celestial navigation elevation angles, then you'll use, especially with a marine sextant, but you can use the bubble sextant as well, or the artificial sextant, because they all do the same thing. Because they're all, but the marine sextant is best for this argument, because the marine sextant places the vertex of the angle onto the sea surface, so it uses sea level. So you're claiming that water levels prove that level is horizontal, then sea level, right, will be a horizontal. So the celestial navigation elevation angles use sea level. With a marine sextant, they use sea level. That's what they do. They create a horizontal baseline along sea level. So if you're stating that water levels prove a horizontal, then you must agree that sea level is a horizontal, right? Now, the sea will be moving, tides, waves, whatever, but there are small undulations on the bigger scale, right? It can be described as horizontal. Otherwise, because if you couldn't describe it as horizontal, what's an horizon? Because there's waves and movements at the horizon, just we can't see them, we don't notice them optically. So, if you want to talk about an argument using a water level, then you must go to the celestial navigation elevation angle using a marine sextant if you want to really support your claim, or commercial air travel, because the commercial air travel just hold an altitude above the surface below, and they don't. Commercial air travel or any air travel does not account for the curvature of any globe. They fly horizontal distances. Commercial air travel especially holds a horizontal for hours at a time and can travel thousands of miles in a horizontal. So if you want to support that water levels are proving that level is horizontal, then you must go to celestial navigation or air travel or similar, right? You can't just use 500 meters of a water level because you're proving F all. You're proving nothing. It's not proving anything. So it's a pointless argument because it's not really an argument at all. Because after 500 meters, what have you got? How big of a water level can you make? And it doesn't matter how big you make it because it's not an optical tool anyway. You have to pre-assume that water level is creating an absolute horizontal, right? But as a baller, I could pre-assume that it's making an apparent horizontal on the small and local scale. So two more things and then one more thing to say at the end. Other statements made by similar people. The same group of people, right? I've heard these statements from them. Flat planes do not exist. I do not agree. The horizon is where we reference horizontal from, as all horizontals are parallel to the plane of the horizon. And all horizontals are flat, which by proxy makes the plane of the horizon a flat plane. So if flat planes do not exist, you're claiming that the horizon does not exist, which means horizontal does not exist because you have nothing to reference it to. So to say that flat planes do not exist is completely incorrect, because that means that the plane of the horizon does not exist, because horizontal and flat are synonymous. Horizontal is always flat. They're synonymous with each other. You can look up the definitions. So to say that flat planes do not exist is completely false, as the horizon is a flat plane. So that's a false statement. 2, flat is two-dimensional. Now this is going to be controversial, right? And I don't think any of these people will actually address any of this, but I put it out there anyway. I do not agree, right? Now this is going to be controversial, right? Until my explanation is read. Why I don't agree that flat is two-dimensional. If I draw a triangle on a piece of A4 paper while it is placed on a kitchen table, then not only will the triangle be described as flat, but by proxy so will the paper it's drawn onto and the kitchen table also. Flat is only descriptive and not a geometric term. So I can buy a paper map with XY coordinates on it, and it can only be described as flat. But just like the piece of paper and the kitchen table, at the microscopic level, there will be undulations. But we still can't describe the triangle as being anything but flat, as flat describes something that appears two-dimensional and appears smooth to the touch, but in fact is not two-dimensional or smooth at the microscopic level. Flat does exist in reality, but only as a description or aspect, and not as a geometric claim, as flat is not part of geometry, as flat is not a shape. There is no such thing as a flat in geometry. We describe the horizon as flat. So you can't claim that flat is two-dimensional and then describe the horizon or a piece of paper or a countertop or a piece of steel girder or whatever as flat. You can't describe anything as flat if you're claiming flat is two-dimensional. You can't describe an XY two-dimensional, what they would call a two-dimensional Cartesian coordinates map as flat. You can only describe it that way. You can't prove that it's flat. You can only describe it. As flat is only a description. It's not a geometric term. You're not making a geometric claim. As I said, there is no flat in geometry. It's purely, you can say the triangle has the aspect of flat, but you can't claim that you can't, and you can only describe the triangle as flat, and you can't describe it as anything else. The triangle you draw on a piece of paper can't be described as anything else but flat. But because anything other than that would have to make it what they call in geometry a solid shape. But it's not a solid shape, right? It can only be described as flat, but flat is only a description. As at the microscopic level, that paper, the piece of paper or the map or whatever, will have undulations, just like the world we live in. Flat doesn't describe a shape, it's describing shapeless in a lot of ways. That's what it does. So I can describe the earth as flat simply because I can't find any curvature or shape to it. It might have undulations, but if I could see the whole earth from up high above without any, if I could view all of the earth, I wouldn't notice the undulations because it would be so big that even something like Mount Everest wouldn't even stand out. So to me, the earth could be described as flat. Just like the piece of paper can be described as flat, or the triangle that's on the piece of paper can be described as flat, or the XY map can be described as flat. But in reality, there is undulations. But that doesn't mean that to call it flat is incorrect, because flat is only a description, an aspect. It is not a geometric claim. So anyone who's saying that flat is two-dimensional, or that flat, to say that the earth is flat is wrong, no, they're wrong, because they don't understand flat. They're wrong because they don't understand flat. That's what's wrong. Not that someone who's saying the earth is flat is wrong, because you're not claiming a shape to the earth. You're not claiming it's two-dimensional, you're claiming it has the appearance of two dimensions. It has the appearance of being that way, right? When you're up high, you can say as a whole. I'm not talking about when you're standing next to a mountain. We're only small little things next to a mountain, but the mountain is very tiny. If you take in the size of that mountain within the full scale of the whole earth, we don't even know how big it is. So you describing the earth as flat is totally fine. Don't feel guilty about describing the earth as flat. Don't leave anyone try and bully you, because all of these people are bullies. They're online bullies. And that's what they try to do to people. I'm not bothered about them. But they do try and bully people into their beliefs and their ways of thinking, which are incorrect. As I've just shown here, their main argument is water level, and it's not an argument. It proves F all. You can't prove anything with a water level. It's not even an optical tool. Even if you made one that was 50 kilometers long, it's still not an optical tool. You have to pre-assume, you must beg the question that it's creating a horizontal. You don't know. On the bigger scale, you don't know. That's the problem. You can't prove it on the bigger scale. I agree it's creating a horizontal, but I would have to use commercial air travel, celestial navigation, elevation angles, something like that, along with the water level argument to make an argument out of it. How could I argue or prove to someone that 500-meter water level proves that level is horizontal? I couldn't, because they can turn around and say to me, well, it might only appear to be horizontal on a small scale. And what do I do then? It's my begging the question fallacy versus their begging the question fallacy. So the whole lot ends up with a draw. So it's not a winning argument, is it? If it's a draw all the time, it's not a winning argument. So that's kind of the end of that. Don't really have much else to say other than uh, rather than addressing these things, and the people involved will probably say that I was sent to do this by Nathan Oakley or Quantum Eraser or some other nonsense, anything but addressing these things. They will probably just focus on flat as two-dimensional and me saying I do not agree. They probably won't focus on these other parts, the explanation underneath. They won't focus, flat planes do not exist. I do not agree. They probably won't focus on any of that. They might just completely ignore the whole video. But it's not for them because I don't expect to change their mind on anything. I don't expect their beliefs to change because that's what they have, a lot of beliefs. I don't expect them to learn overnight where they're wrong. Some of them will never learn maybe where they're wrong. Or if they do, what I've noticed is when they're proven wrong and they don't admit it. Do you know what I mean? So there's a lack of humility there. So why go and talk to people who are not honest? Why would you do that? What's the point? It's pointless talking to these people. I'm done talking with them. I've gone and spoken with these people. You all know who they are. Not naming any names. They've made it completely pointless speaking with them. They're narrow-minded. They don't understand a lot of things, and they make a lot of stupid claims, and they contradict their own claims and their own statements without even realizing it within the same paragraph sometimes. I'm not perfect. Flat Earth Debates is not perfect, but we at least try to be correct. And these people tend to have an attitude issue. They tend to be arrogant. They are demeaning of other people. They try and bully people and attack people for saying the earth is flat without even addressing what flat is. They do stupid stuff like that, and they think they have winning arguments that when their arguments would only end up in a draw with any bold believer worth their salt. I'm a flat earther, and I have no bother calling myself a flat earther. And I could be a ball earther and take that same water level argument, and I could show how they couldn't. I wouldn't be able to win against it, but they couldn't beat me with it as a baller. So if you can't beat the baller, if you can only get, which are two best arguments, which are water levels and parallel. Sorry, that level is horizontal and water levels is that's because level is horizontal is an axiom, and water level is supposed to support and prove that. Then what happens after 500 meters? It's not even an optical tool, so it's not proving anything. It's only I can even though I agree that it's creating a horizontal, I don't agree for a moment that it's an apparent horizontal or appears to be horizontal or a local horizontal. I don't agree with any of that. But that doesn't mean someone who's a globe believer can't come along and say that and completely ruin your argument, stop you in your tracks, and you're left with what? What are you left with? 500 meters of a water level that doesn't prove anything. You might be able to lay concrete with it, but there's such little curvature within 500 meters if you're talking about a globe Earth. It won't mean anything. And who cares if you make a flat plane on a spherical surface? That won't prove that it's, you know what I mean? If you put concrete down wherever and it looks flat, it looks horizontal. That doesn't mean that it's horizontal on the big scale. If to somebody who believes the Earth is a globe. So don't let these people bully you. Don't waste your time trying to get anything through to them. You're wasting your time. They're only going to demean you. They're not interested in addressing where they're wrong or addressing where they've been dishonest. They're interested in character assassination, in misrepresentation, in going into conspiracy nonsense, like claiming that people like me are being sent out by the Flat Earth Debate team to do this nonsense. Like they don't even know I'm doing this. They don't know about it till I post the video into the Skype groups or on YouTube. They don't know anything about it. So, there's no big conspiracy. I'm just pointing out where there's people out there who are wrong and are too arrogant to see where they're wrong, and are bullies. Basically, they're online bullies. That's how I view them. They try and bully people into their way of thinking, their beliefs, because that's what they have. There's a lot of beliefs. A Bible verse or a Bible quote I used recently, and it's very, it's poignant for these people right now. It's Romans 1:22, I think it is. I'm not a Bible reading person, but it sums it up. Claiming to be wise, they became fools. That's basically the gist of it. And that's how I see these people. They're trying to promote themselves as wise and wizened, and they're gaining people's trust, and they're leading people down an arrogant road that's leading to nowhere, because these people aren't wise. They're not wizened, and they will become fools, and everyone who follows them will as well. I'm sorry to say that, but it's true, because these people don't have humility. They're not willing to learn anything. They claim they want explanations for things, but then they disregard the explanations. What's the point? They make it pointless talking to them, and then they say no one comes to talk to them. Why would you do that? If someone makes it pointless, why would you waste your time? Anyway, that's the end of that. Thanks for watching.